Time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic do. I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffin-Stone, and we are your hosts on your journey to the heart of the primordial.
Welcome to Season 8, Episode 2, You Ain't Shit.
Okay,
That's the
good,
title
I
that
think.
has been pushed on me all week.
You ain't shit.
You ain't shit. I'm tempted to just kind of sit here for a minute or just tell people to pause and let that sit, how they felt when they heard you ain't shit.
Well, it depends on where you put the emphasis,
Yes.
right? I mean, if you ain't shit, then it means you're good, right?
Yeah.
But if you ain't shit, then it means you ain't nothing.
Yeah. So this is a continuance of something we started last week and following the idea of vainglory.
Aha.
So the idea of this one, because that's what I'm being pushed for, is to explain this, is that it doesn't matter if you're a starseed, doesn't matter if you're an alien incarnated as a human being, doesn't matter if you're an angel incarnated, doesn't matter if you're a witch, a wizard, a shaman, whatever. The titles don't mean anything. If you're not doing the work, you ain't shit. The titles mean nothing.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, that fits in every area of life,
Right. So
right?
it's like you're a starseed, that's great. What are you doing with that? Nothing? Okay.
Hmm.
Well, so what? Good for you, you're a starseed.
Yep. I mean, in the mundane world, I use degrees
Mm-hmm.
as a point of reference for that because, and full disclaimer, right, before anybody starts, don't diss on
Right.
people with degrees. I have four. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not saying degrees are a bad thing per se. I'm just saying that they are given attributes that they don't have.
Right.
It's somebody else's stuff, and you learned it and you can regurgitate it, and that's great. And maybe you can do something useful with it, but maybe you can't.
Right.
And that's the thing is you can't tell who can apply the information and who can't when it's a degree that has application.
Right.
So the title you have, whether it's in the mundane world or in the world of witchcraft or spirituality, your title, it don't mean shit. That's true. It doesn't mean a damn
Yeah.
thing because you have doctors who are great, and you
Mm.
have doctors that freaking ought to be struck off, and
Right.
and a range in between. Same thing with teachers, same thing with, pick a profession. So just because you have that title, it doesn't mean a thing.
Right. The idea is to earnestly do the work you're here to do.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what the title might convey to other people. Don't worry about what it means for status and stuff like that, because none of that matters if you're not doing the work.
I
You're
think
here. Have you been?
priorities.
Yeah.
Priorities are another important thing.
Yeah.
Are you focused on the right aspects? Are you doing it for the right reason?
Yes.
And that comes back to, you being transactional, or are you in relationship? Are you focusing on improvement, or have you got a grudge? Like, what angle are you coming from?
Hmm. Yeah. This has been pushed on me for a while now, this vibe, you know, and I know it because every time I go into one of the groups I belong to, I'm always like, oh my God, could you guys quit? Like, what are you doing? So what? Okay, you have this title. It doesn't make you better than anyone else. It's what you do with your title that makes you better. Well, better. It's what you do with your title that matters, not that you're this thing and therefore you're better than every other part of humanity. Because there's so much of that being pushed right now. You know?
Sure. And, just look through that. Look through the veil at what that is. People have titles. Who gave them to them?
Mm.
And if nobody gave them to them, Okay, so you gave it to yourself. It doesn't honestly matter which way it goes, right? It's no more valid one way or the other. The point is, none of it's valid. That's the real point, is titles are just, I think I'll wear this crown right
Mm,
now. I think I'll wear this badge. I think some people might get upset and say, no, you have to earn it.
mm,
Do you, though? I mean, I'm not saying you're not working for it,
right,
but does the end result, does that ribbon that you got, or that, title, that thing on your desk that says what you are, um, is that it? Does that make a difference? Like, it's like the star chart or the sticker chart when you were a
right.
kid, right? Did you earn your
Hmm.
stars today? Because it's basically the same thing. And it
Hmm.
has about as much importance, which is nothing. What it does is it gets you to do more of that thing that other people would like you to do. So if you
Right,
can look through those titles, look past all of that at what am I actually doing? Am I contributing in a way that is something I'm proud of?
right.
Let's put it that way.
Yes. So that's the thing. That's the message that's been coming around for like a month at least now. Of the, because every time I'd see it, I'd be just like, oh my God, could you guys stop? Just stop. Just do the work. Get in there. I don't need you posting about it. I need you to do the work. Now, mind you, a lot of the groups I'm in have been like overwhelmed by people asking you if you believe in God and who do you side with and stuff like that too. But even stuff that has
Oh,
nothing to do with it.
and don't do that. You've got the threefold law
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, which, again, depending on what episodes you listen to,
Mm,
threefold law is out of somebody's rule book, which means it's not part of spirituality or witchcraft. It is part of Wiccan,
mm,
which is a religion based on witchcraft, but it's not, it's a very gentle. It's a bit like the Baha'i faith, if you've ever looked
mm,
at that. It's kind of, hey, let's all be nice.
mm.
Hold hands and sing Kumbaya is essentially, I'm gonna piss off so many Baha'is right now, but that's essentially what it is, right? And yeah, that's also not actually applicable to what we're doing. You don't need the rule book. I
Right.
keep saying it, and if anybody still thinks they need a rule book, I'm going to smack them the head with one. Patrick.
Yeah. All right. I guess there's something people have to sit with because this came in with a lot of energy and now it's like just a trickle. I think
Huh.
the main message has been sent.
Okay, well, shortest podcast
Yep.
episode
Episode
ever.
over. We're done.
Yeah, no, we're not.
uh, I think going forward now is the idea of, I want to say care work. Now that we've shocked you with, listen, all these titles and stuff you've been aggrandizing yourself with, that's done. You are the one who will determine what your position, or you'll determine if you have glory, basically.
Well, so my question
Right.
that I would love for people to consider, and I consider it myself, this is
Hmm.
for everybody. Who are you without those titles? Who are you without that job or that status, whatever it is, however high or low you consider that title to be? Who are you without it? Because so many people define themselves by their jobs, for example. Oh, I'm an engineer, you know, cool. But who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what that tells me nothing about you as a person. You're giving me a title, a position, a thing that you do to earn money. But what do you do? Like, who are you? And that's far more interesting. When we do identity work, for
Mm.
example, and so for somebody who hasn't done any kind of personal development work, the deal with the identity work is who do you identify as and how do you want to identify? what do you want to change? So, for example, if you want to be somebody who goes running every day, then you need to identify as a runner. So, what does a runner do? What is the behavior of a runner? And you start practicing that behavior and you become the identity you want. That
Right.
piece of your identity, right? It's just a little facet in a diamond. It's not who you are. I am a runner is not your title. But
Right.
it's a thing that you identify with. It's a thing you do. So identity work requires recognizing and putting aside those titles that get in the way. Oh, I'm a sister, I'm a
Mm.
mother, I'm a daughter,
Right.
I'm okay, those are all roles society gave you, and they mean jack shit because millions and millions and millions of people could say exactly the
Mm.
same thing. So that
Right.
says nothing about you, the individual. So who are you? What is unique about you? What do you stand for? What do you do? Not for work, but just
Right.
in life.
That's
If
good. I
you're
like
a
what you.
witch, are you
Yeah.
practicing? If you're
Mm.
practicing, what are you practicing? Like, what's your point? What are you working toward? Is it an aesthetic? Is it something you do for money on Instagram? Because there's plenty of them.
Hmm.
Do you sell stuff in a shop or are you doing private work, group work? Tell us more, but also recognize more.
Yes. I like where you went because it's true. Because this is now yeah. Like, what is it about you? Like, it's not just the title to aggrandize you, but it's also get rid of the title so as not to limit yourself.
Yes. And that's huge because, if somebody says, "Well, I'm a garbage collector."
Mm.
Okay, cool. That's really necessary work. Thank you for doing that because if
Mhm.
you don't, we're on deep shit, quite literally. So, thanks for doing that. But again, that's not who you are,
Mm.
right? It's a job you do. And thank goodness you're strong enough to lift the cans and what have you. If you don't
Right.
have one, like where we live, there's one guy who comes around and he lifts those bloody huge cans and throws them around like what a workout. So I'm really glad, and I always tell him thank you when I see him because I'm so pleased that he's actually doing the job. Appreciate that, but it shouldn't be something that holds you down either, or has you thinking that you can't be as powerful as somebody else,
Right.
right? You don't have to be born into riches in order to do witchcraft. That's an absolute nonsense. You don't have to buy all the stuff either.
Right.
That's also a nonsense, right? You can work with whatever you have around you. As we've said a gazillion times by now, it's
Yes.
the intention, right?
Yep.
So don't let how you have been identifying yourself hold you down or give you delusions of grandeur, right?
Right.
It's just see through all of that, look through and past. What else is there?
Yes. I'm always amazed at how just really custom this is. Like so personal, what your work is, what you're doing, how you work within the energy, how it goes with you. Like it's so personal. And when you think about it, right, the titles are more an impediment than they are. Like they're a place to start. Oh, I'm this. Okay, that's cool. Now what does that mean? And what does it
There
mean for you
can be.
specifically?
There can be a place to start. There can also be a huge limitation.
Mm.
You know, in my day job, what do I come across but kids who, the parent will say, "Oh, this is Johnny. He has autism." Like, excuse me, but I am deeply offended on behalf of your child.
Mm.
What the hell are you introducing them
Like
with?
that for you.
This is my kid, he has autism. Like, what the hell? Do you say this is my kid, he has diabetes? Do you say this is my kid, he has an IQ of 79? Like, this is
Yeah.
not okay. You are delineating that person by using their
Right.
diagnosis as a descriptor. Man, that drives me nuts because that person hears this all the time and
Hmm.
figures that's what defines me. My disability defines me. Well, wow. Thanks for putting the concrete boots on and throwing them in the river. Like,
Right.
what the hell? I wish people wouldn't do that to each other either. It's not necessary to introduce somebody by their differences.
Yeah. It's making me think like I never used the title wizard, right? That was never something I never did before the podcast. And one of the reasons was, right, because it was just like if I give you wisdom and you agree with the wisdom, then it doesn't matter to you where I got it from. Just accept the wisdom and do what you need with it, right? And you're not exactly being asked that to be like that. But you're being asked to let your actions speak for you rather than any preconceived notion that a title might give you. So if you give someone wisdom, you've given them wisdom. And because your wisdom's not going to come from the fact that you're a starseed or whatever other title it is you're giving yourself. It's going to be because you lived, you immersed yourself in the experience, and you understood and grew from it, and now you have it to share. That's your wisdom, or you'll channel something. But it's not because you have a title that you have that wisdom,
Hmm. Well, another great question to ask yourself. Uh, do it in my voice if you like, because I would
right?
ask you the question if I was talking to you directly. And the question is, cool. What does that mean?
Yes.
Tell me what that means about you. How do you identify that? Because you use the word starseed, I
Mm,
might understand something completely different by it. There isn't one definition, right? I mean, there's an ish,
yeah.
but people are going to have different emphasis on aspects of it. So when somebody says, "Oh, I'm this" or "I'm that," okay, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? Because God knows if you hear somebody say, "I'm a Christian," it can mean a
Mm,
lot of very, very different things. In fact, I saw something yesterday that I thought was pretty hilarious, and that was, "Oh, so do you believe in classic Jesus or Republican Jesus?
yeah.
Like, which one is it?" And I'm just, whoa, burn. That's that's a fairly good question, right? But there's also all those little groups, those little offshoots that each group thinks they're the
Right.
only ones going to heaven, right? And everybody else is on the wrong path. Really? Like, how did you get to that point? That's
Right.
that's just kind of a side quest, if you will. But I'm just very interested in how
Well,
people will identify as something and then never question it themselves.
it is though the best, most visceral example you can give because of how many Christians there are in the world and how many
And
denominations there are and how
yeah,
many people believe, well, this group's going to hell because they don't believe in the way we believe in. Or you can be like a Jehovah's Witness and say, you can believe what we believe in, but still only a certain amount of us are going through.
that one freaks me out just a little because if you're in that particular religion, you're okay with potentially not being one of the selected ones, no matter how well you live. That's that's tough. That's
Yeah.
really tough. Whew. I don't know how people hang on with that one. It doesn't give you a lot of hope, right? You're not
No.
really, you haven't got much to hang on to. So I'm going to stick with this very strict, rule-laden
Mm-hmm.
religion, and I'm probably not going to get anywhere.
Yep.
Wow, damn, that's harsh. But I once knew someone who identified as a Christadelphian. Oh, what now?
Christadelphian.
A
Yep.
Christadelphian. There's something like, I don't know, a few thousand of them, tops. It's a small little offshoot. And she literally informed me that if you were not Christadelphian, you were going to hell. And I confess, am I proud of it? Probably not. Am I vastly amused even still? Yes. Um, I gave her such a hard time.
Mm.
Oh my God, I was brutal because I wanted to know, well, where does everybody
Yeah.
else go? Doesn't it get crowded? What about people who have never heard of Jesus? What about people who don't know Christadelphians exist?
Mm.
What about people with mental handicap, etc., etc.? Like,
Mm.
she ended up throwing an extremely heavy book at my head. Um, and it just cracked me up because she could not answer any of those questions. The only thing she had for me was, you have to be Christadelphian to go to heaven. She couldn't even tell me what she thought heaven was.
Mm.
Like, I had a lot of questions, as you can well imagine, and she was not happy with me at all. So
Like,
I gave her a very hard time, but I mean, if you were gonna come spouting that kind of stuff,
yeah,
you had better bring some responses.
right. So like, do you have to live in Philadelphia to be a Christadelphian or whatever?
Where was she? She was in the UK. She was a
Oh,
Brit.
well,
I
that's
lived in the
even
UK at the
easier.
time. So I don't even know like where that whole thing sprang from. And she
Hmm.
had grown up in it, so she didn't know anything else. But I was rightly or wrongly, I was trying to highlight to her that she had zero idea of what on earth she was talking about. She had literally no concepts to tell me about. There was
That's
no explanation. There was nothing that she could hang on to there other than this is it, this is me, this is what I do.
this almost leads to a good side project. Try to figure out all the names of all the different denominations because I had not heard of this one for sure.
Yeah, no, that was I haven't met another one since either, but fascinating.
And yet she was in it her whole life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she was 26 at the time, and she'd lived it in her whole life, and that was it. That was what she knew. And the bizarre thing was we were working in a science lab together,
Right.
and they didn't particularly go with science as a concept in her religion. So that was a little weird, but I mean it's chemistry based. But anyway,
Mm.
that's an aside. But fascinating that somebody is going to wear that as their identity, and yet it's
Right.
an empty shell. There is nothing of substance behind that she could present.
Right.
So where else do we do that in life? I think we do it, we all do it in certain places, right? Because we're just used to saying, "Oh, I believe this," or "I do that," or "I think this." But do you? Is it just something you say? Have you said it so long you believe it's true? Or do you? What's that look like? Get
Yeah.
curious, people. Get curious.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I'm at a loss for
Daniel's
word
looking
terms
very
here.
thoughtful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say something like, no, even that's being blocked. I was just going to explain what I was thinking, but all right. So I get from what you're getting is that this is actually meant to be a positive episode, despite the title, despite how we started off, because
Well,
it's the
yeah, because
celebration of who you are versus what you think you are with the title.
well, okay, you've just
Right.
brought up something really I think it's interesting, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's cool. And that is if you take your ego
Mm-hmm.
out of that whole thing of you ain't shit,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well then what am I? Like, all right, if I accept what you've just said, then what's left? Let me look at that. And you
Right.
don't have to get bogged down in, oh, I'm going to take that personally and you've just wounded my ego and now I'm pissed at
Right.
you. Like, you could, but then you stop, right? You're stuck in that mire of annoyance at another person for what they said. But if you can just kind of take it in one hand and say, well, okay, if this was true, then what else? You don't have to accept it as absolutely true either. Consider it, is it?
Right.
Do you agree with that statement? Remember, as we've often said with the Buddha's teachings, you hear something, measure it against your life experience. If
Right.
it's good, keep it and use it. If it's not, put it to one side. But nowhere in that whole teaching is there an ego getting in the way saying, oh, now I'm mad.
Mm.
Now you've offended me. I'm not talking to you again.
Right.
Like, okay, but you didn't get anything out of that exchange. You could. Even if the ultimate decision is he's full of it, I'm not listening anymore,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but at least examine it first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because yeah, I come back to it. This is meant to be a celebration of yourself.
Yeah.
Know who you truly are so that you are, instead of saying, like, for me, instead of saying, okay, I channel, an angel who wants to bring back primordial magic, I can just say, I'm Danielle and I happen to do this. But so then no matter what happens, I'm still Danielle, you know. It's not,
Mhm.
and so if I do something, it's because I'm me, not because I had a title or someone had said, "Here's your task." You know, I don't know if
Right.
that came out quite properly, but yeah. So,
Well, I would have right now, I'm Michaela and
mhm,
I launched a summit
mhm,
today and it's something I'm really psyched about
mhm,
and it lights me up right now.
right,
It tells you one of the things that I'm doing, but I'm not the summit, which is a good thing because it'll
right,
be over in a short space of time. But, I'm telling you something that is important to me. It lights me up, makes me happy.
mhm,
So that's the kind of thing that I think is interesting, but it's also transient.
right,
Right? That's what I'm doing right now. And next week, what else will I be doing? Probably more podcasting,
right,
or what else am I doing? There's a study course I'm starting up soon,
mhm,
which Danielle might be doing with me.
mhm,
Um, and that's really interesting because I love going to places where I can learn new things. So yeah, like it's transient. You don't have to stick with the identity you were given once upon a time and stay there, no matter
right,
what it is, how golden and shiny it is, or how shitty and dirty it is. You don't have to stick with it.
right.
Look
My
at
brain kind of,
Melania Trump. She's gone from she's gone from I don't know if she was ever a porn star, but she was
mm,
certainly in porn to, First Lady of the
mm,
United States. How does she identify right now?
yeah,
Pretty sure she doesn't talk about her porn career,
right,
So you
yeah.
can be how you want to show up.
So my brain went on this path of, so when you said, right, it's transient. So if we step back from into the spiritual perspective, right? So you'll go through multiple lives, and so what you are in one life does not mark who you are for the rest of your existence in this universe. And plus, looking at the times we're in, right? We're like at the bottom where two Kali Yugas are meeting. Yes, we're starting to move towards the ascension part, but none of us alive today are going to be when we get to the top of the hill.
Oh no, not in this
So
version anyway.
yeah, like we're here right now just helping everyone get to, that momentum forward to go up the hill. But that's where we are. And if you look at the big picture, well, you can say, well, then we're severely lacking, right? Because we're not the ones bringing people into something exciting and all that. But we're still the start. We still have to do it. It still has to get done. And if your
Mhm,
ego gets in the way, then you're not doing the work because you're too worried about what does this mean? What does that mean? How do I look when I do that? How am I going to be viewed in the future when I do that? But it needs to get done.
mhm.
Like we're going to
Yeah.
be future people in the future are going to probably look back on all of us doing this and go, "Wow, you guys had like a lot of limitations. Look, you thought this was still okay, and you spoke this way. You just told people they weren't shit when you could have been much nicer." And you're,
Or whatever the
yeah,
new norm is, right?
right,
Whatever that is. We can only work with what we have
right,
and look to improvement, to forward thinking kind of things, but hell, we could be completely wrong in what we're doing, and we don't know. We think we're going in the right way, and that's the best you can do, really.
right,
If you feel like you're making the best moves that you know how, then that is what you can do. That's it.
yeah,
I firmly believe that. And if it involves an awful lot of um, storytelling to yourself, then you might be lying to yourself, in which case, um, who would you be if you weren't doing that?
right,
Like, what would be true if you didn't have to bullshit your way into believing something? Because that's a lot of religion. There's a lot of
mm,
religion where, oh no, I can't question that. Oh no, you can't question that. You have to take it on faith. If you can't question something, underline the word can't. If you can't
mhm.
question something, then there is a massive red flag. I don't know if you've seen the guy on Instagram that runs up and down with like the giant red flag in
Oh,
his
no, I
videos for
don't
certain things,
know.
but it's that. Like
Mm,
you can always question. So if
yeah,
somebody stops you, it means they either don't want you to have the answer or they don't have one.
right. And I'm glad you brought that up because, like I've said, I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, like. for me to act, I have to ask a bunch of questions. I have to be secure in my position because once I'm secure in my position, I'm going in whole hog, right? And it's going to be hard to dissuade me from what I'm going to do. So to me, when someone says you can't ask questions, I'm like, but don't you want someone who can go in and be secure in their position if they agree with you? Like, don't you want that? Because those people won't be dissuaded from your position, from whatever it is they're supposed to do. But the people who are never allowed to ask questions will always be living in doubt and therefore be persuadable to do something else.
So
But
I'm gonna bring a little psychology in at this point.
all right,
Adlerian psychology, which isn't
right,
one that people tend to study overly, but I don't know, he had some good points. And one of them was if you are in an argument with someone and you want them to agree with you, you need them to see your point,
mhm,
then you are seeking an imbalance because if you are right and you have to have them agree with you, then they must say that they were wrong
right,
and then shift their position to align with yours, which means you are now on top. You are the
right,
boss. You are the superior one of the two in
yeah,
this argument. People don't want to give up their perspectives precisely because of that.
mm,
They don't want to be the one who was wrong
right,
because they make it mean stuff, right? The ego gets in the way again. But also, there's an ego involved if you have to have other people agree with you.
right,
So if you're yelling and screaming, you're an idiot, you're getting it all wrong, you've got to do it this way, it has to be this way, and no, you can't ask questions, then you're insecure in what you're telling people,
yeah,
right? That person is fundamentally insecure. If you must
right,
agree with them or else, right? There's an insecurity. And
right,
I'm gonna go there right now.
okay,
The whole current anti-Semitism thing, it is massive, and people will immediately default to being against Netanyahu is not the same as anti-Semitism. Uh, Technically, I agree. However, that's not what's happening. So it's a false argument, right? People aren't only disagreeing with a leader; they are holding the entire country responsible and all Jews. So that's not what's happening, right? But if you stand up and go against that tide, you're in a world of trouble because everybody needs you to agree with them. If you agree with them, they don't have to stop and question what kind of bullshit premise they have for hating an entire nation, for hating an entire group of people, right? No other group of people faces this with impunity, only the Jewish people, right? And it's very much in vogue to do this. But try questioning somebody. I saw a perfect example of this. There was a young woman who was Muslim and Jewish,
right,
one parent of
mhm,
each, and she was from Israel.
right,
And so she was talking to people on the street, and this young Caucasian girl stopped,
right,
and they were talking, kind of, and she said, the Muslim Jewish girl was trying to explain that there isn't apartheid in Israel, and it's not this way, and it's how it is actually. And this girl was just getting more and more angry and saying, yeah, well, free Palestine, and yeah, well, shit, and all this kind of thing. And the girl said, look, do you want to talk to me and we can have a conversation and I can explain to you my life experience? And she said, well, no, because fuck Israel, and walked off, right? That is exactly what I am talking about. That person has no idea why she hates so much. None.
right,
But she identifies with it so strongly that if somebody questions that and shows that they could have something really valid to contribute
right,
that would disagree with that point, she can't hold it.
right. I'm glad you brought it up actually, because in my feed, I get every once in a while, as you say, someone who says they're a leftist and they are very staunch anti-Israel. And but what I noticed, it's as you have presented it, right? It's someone who doesn't have, it's people who follow and don't lead. They think they're
Yep.
leading, but they follow.
Hmm.
And you know what? I'm going to put this out there. I don't know why. I don't think we're popular enough of a podcast to worry about it, but like what I find is for those of you familiar with the Young Turks,
Yes.
oh my God, they breed those kind of liberals, those kind of leftists, and it's crazy. People will leave the show, like they'll leave with like having arguments with the management, but they're just as bad as they were when they were on the Young Turks. They just now do it under their own banner. I almost think like the Young Turks is like it's a breeding ground. I'm trying to think what's the right word for it. I want to be clear. It's like, well, I mean, you ain't shit, obviously, because that's the title of the podcast, but it is literally people seeking it's vainglory. I don't know how to better explain it that like when you listen to how they present things, the topics they choose, one, it's very right. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of feeling of self-righteousness. There's but completely convinced that they're doing, or at least putting up the good act of being convinced they're doing the right thing. It's
But it's
the
very shallow.
right. It is massively shallow because I used to follow it for a little bit, and it was like,
Mm.
oh my God, you guys, like, I can't. Like, it's like there's attacks, but there's no real
Mhm.
discussion.
Well, that's like that was what Charlie Kirk used to do,
Right. Yes.
was he would attack all the time. And he was known as a debater, but have you ever listened to anything? This guy didn't debate. He just yelled at people louder and louder until they gave it up. But he didn't debate. He had nothing to debate. He had very strong opinions that were based on nothing substantial, honestly.
Mm,
Like all black people do this, all Jews do that, whatever. Like
mm,
those kind of statements are a fallacy before you get any further. You can't do that other than to say all black people are some definition of black.
right.
Okay, I guess we can go that far. But other than that, when you start attributing sort of characteristics, you're getting into the stereotypes, which we all know
Right.
is not helpful. It's not a debate topic. It's just a low level of I'm going to lump you all into this group because I don't know you or understand you.
Mm,
It's just like, okay, someone, Tina, who was on this podcast before,
mm,
she had a person contact her
right.
about the summit because she's
Right.
in the summit.
Yes.
And this woman said, I'm having absolutely nothing in all
Mm,
caps to do with witches. And
right.
I was kind of, I'd love to have her contact information because I want to ask her what is a witch?
Yeah.
What do you think a witch is? And please do tell me that you think it's the biblical version that, you shall not suffer a witch to live,
Right.
because that was a mistranslation entirely,
Well, yeah.
as often happened, and
Mm,
it's you shall not suffer a poisoner
mm,
to live, which is a very different thing,
right.
right? So, yeah, you ain't shit, but you might be full of it. That might be the second part of the title.
Yeah. Well, I had even heard for that one specifically, it's not even about killing them. It's about not allowing someone to ply their trade to make a living.
It can be anything to
Yeah.
stop them, right? Like in the US right now, we have this thing about trans people. There's oh geez, I think it's Tennessee, want
Mm,
to have a publicly available register, so that everybody can know who is trans.
that's
Now, why would you do that apart from Sieg Heil?
right.
Other than a distinctly Nazi agenda, why do you need to know who's trans and who isn't? And the obsession with bathrooms. The obsession with bathrooms. If
Mm,
somebody's going into bathroom stall and they close the door, I don't care what they got in their pants. I
mm,
just care that they close the damn door
right.
because I don't actually want to see, right? And whatever gender, but this is it. They're so focused that now you can have, in some places, it's legal for a man to follow somebody who they think is trans into a woman's bathroom to confront them about being trans. Okay, now the dude
Yeah.
walking into the bathroom scares me a
Yeah.
lot more than any trans person is ever going to, right?
Yeah.
They are not the problem. It's the MAGA bunch who have got their heads in other people's pants. That's the
Mm.
problem, right? But that's what we have right now. And the voice gets louder and louder, the collective voice. And they're picking on trans. But you know what? It's not going to detract from the fact that we need the Epstein files to be released and people
Right.
prosecuted.
Yeah.
So, they're bombing the crap out of Iran. They accidentally, I quote,
Mm.
voted,
Mm.
bombed Iraq. Can you imagine they bombed Iraq because they had, so they say, outdated information? Like, I
Right.
don't know, did the countries move? Like,
Yeah.
what got outdated with that? Are
Yeah.
you saying this was a map from the previous time they were attacking in the Middle East? There's a lot there. But all of this is to detract from the Epstein files. I
You
just
know,
mentioned that.
and that you brought up the bombing stuff. This is a reminder that AI ain't shit either, because the lists of targets were made by AI, but they took keywords and decided those were targets, even if it didn't make sense.
And they followed what they were told.
Yeah. Can you
I
imagine a
think
system
we're
like that?
living in an era now where a good soldier is not one who blindly follows what they're told.
Mm. Well,
You
they
know,
have to, for to be a good soldier now, you'd almost have to ignore all your orders. I mean, but the idea is right. You can't be pushed into an illegal order.
and yet,
Yeah. But we've seen it with Iraq, right? There was a case
mhm.
of a soldier. They were going to get him for treason for not wanting to deploy to Iraq. But he said, I'll go to Afghanistan. But I believe Iraq is an illegal war. Now, normally, to my understanding from following the story, was that they would have to prove that the order was legal to send him to Iraq. So they ended up getting him on a lesser charge, something about disobeying the chain of command or something for a lesser thing. And then he went to jail for that instead of refusing to go to Iraq because they would
Uh-huh.
have to have proven Iraq was illegal, was a legal thing to do. So you get stuff like that in the military, right? But you would need soldiers to stand up. But the honest reality is, I don't think you're recruiting the best of the best of the best of the best.
Well, he also,
Yeah,
the pedo in charge got rid
yeah,
of all of those who were likely to tell him where he could put
right.
his legal
Yes,
order. So that's
right.
the other thing. But anyway, we kind of got off topic
Yeah.
just a little there, but I think it's
Well,
the
I mean, you
sort
could
of
order, right? I'm a soldier, but that's a title. But you're a human being, and if you want to do even if you want to deploy your duty as a soldier, your duty as a soldier is not to follow any order given to you. It is to follow what the Constitution allows and doesn't allow, because that's your job is to defend it against enemies, uh, near and abroad or whatever, and all
outside
that.
and within.
Yeah. So if you're a good soldier, you don't do the order that tells you to go do the shitty thing.
Yeah, and yet here we are because, who's going to be the one that disagrees?
Right. Actually, that's another venue to go down. Like, so if you believe, okay, I don't know why I'm picking on star seeds. I think it's just because to me, it's the one I kind of, to me, is the most far-fetched. I don't know why.
That
So what?
I was going to say they're bothering you today.
Yeah, they are. So anyway, so go back with star seeds. Like, if you believe your job as a star seed is to do A, B, and C is really shitty, ask yourself some questions. Or, okay, you have A, B, and C to do, but yet you're somehow out here doing G and F and M and L. And it's like, well, how does this match with what you say you are and what you're supposed to be doing? Like, how does it? I mean, if you can show me the connection, that's fine. But I mean, is it connected? Like,
Well, if you can show yourself the connection,
yeah,
in all truth, like what when you've got a bunch of tasks that you feel
mm,
you have to do, is it true? And if it is true, does it make sense to you? And if it does make sense, well, okay, are you forcing it to make sense or does it really
right,
make sense? And, do you feel good about that? Would you be happy to be on the receiving end? Or
right.
do we have to do an othering where, well, I'm worth more than that other person, so it's okay that I do this to them? because the stuff that's happening right now, like why and how does anybody consider themselves to be a more valid human being than a trans person?
Right.
Why? Because that trans person, from my perspective, that trans person has gone through an awful lot that you can never hope to understand because you haven't had to experience living in the wrong body.
Right.
So to have that experience where that you landed in the wrong place, then this is not actually
Mm.
the body you're meant to be in, and so you don't feel like you're correct in your own skin, and you take action to fix
Mm.
that. That's a lot of bravery right there to do that, and that's a lot of self-understanding and a lot of journeying that that person has to
There
do.
is definitely a lot of journeying in it. Like, I
Right.
mean,
It's a lot and a lot of navigating.
right.
And even without this current attack on trans,
Mm.
people are normally fairly hostile to whatever they don't understand,
Right.
and trans would be it. So, but who can stand up and say that they are worth more as a human
Well,
being? I want to
that's the thing,
see
right?
that person.
And that's kind of the thing, like, I don't know how to better word this, but like, so in my, we'll say my cultivation, my training to do this whole, return of primordial magic, one of the things I was never really allowed to do was to get too high on myself for the very reason of why do you think you're so important? Like I got repeatedly, you ain't shit in the aspects of how you're going to learn. It's like, oh, you think this person is bad? Well, guess what? We're now going to give you an experience where you're going to see their perspective. And then it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay, I see where I missed the point here. I see why I thought this. Okay, I got it. But I kind of lived an experience that would give me an analog to what they were. You know, I'll give you the good one, right? Like if someone is addicted to something, well, I'm overweight and I use food in the same way a person would use another thing for their addiction. So that's not the only thing that kind of got me to understand that kind of stuff. But I got to see either from spending time with other people and getting to talk with them, or having my own experiences that set off the cascade events of that understanding. So I won't look ever say if I look back on my history, I can say, oh, I was a perfect person. It's like, no, I did this, I made these mistakes here because I allowed this thought to come in, or I viewed it from this perspective, but then I learned the lesson. So my history is not going to be, you're not going to look back on my history and see it like as some divine person who's never made a mistake or who's never done anything wrong, or who's, coming out of it shiny and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I'm missing some teeth because of malnutrition and not doing things I needed to do. So I'm not, for someone
Okay.
associated with an angelic being, it's not me. Like,
You just brought
right,
up the subject of somebody who's all shiny and
right,
doing all the right things. Let's just talk about the gurus who are falling right now,
mm,
shall we?
mm,
And what the other gurus are doing about that. So, for example,
mm,
Deepak Chopra, who I am
right,
still very pissed at, is, he's in the Epstein files
right,
more than 3,000 times. Like, he is in there
mm,
a lot. And he has a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like they were friends, they were buddies, they met up all over the
mm,
place. I'm sure it wasn't just for cocktails, right? So this guy has clearly done a bunch of things that no spiritual guru
right,
should have on their repertoire. What I find interesting and disturbing and also pisses me off is all the people who know Deepak Chopra
mm,
and have shown up in the files themselves, but most particularly know Deepak Chopra, not know of him, but
mm,
know him personally, like Mel Robbins,
mm,
Tony Robbins, a whole bunch
mm,
of, yeah, the list is long, whole
right,
bunch of these kind of gurus. Not one of them has said anything. Not one of them has stood up and said, whoa, that was wrong. None of them said anything at the time either. And you can bet that there are people in that long list of gurus who knew what he was like
right,
and what he was doing. I don't think he tried to hide it overly much. It just didn't make it into the public domain. But people who knew him knew what he was like. And they still do, and they're still saying nothing.
right.
So any of those people, are they shiny? Are they shiny and mistake free? They ain't shit. I'm using that one for them.
Right.
Like, So my takeaway from this, and take it or don't, is that this is definitely the time where gurus are crumbling. They're crumbling to dust, and there is nobody with a modicum of understanding that is going to follow them. And yeah, I did just say that, but you cannot reconcile the public knowledge that we now have
Mm.
with their identity, how they present
Right.
themselves, what they claim to be doing,
Right.
the knowledge they claim to have, that they're going to be able to inspire you to a better life. Meanwhile, they're screwing children.
Right.
Okay, I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? We are in a period of time where there's lots of deception and a lot of people going out of the way to be deceptive.
Yes, yes.
And like, because me too, right? Like, I sometimes I don't talk about things I know because I know I'm going to hurt a whole bunch of people's feelings who have gone through, checked out these gurus, learned things from them, and it's like I'll keep it to myself for now, unless you get too close to something or you really go off on a kilter, where then I have to say, hey, listen, because there's a lot of work. Like, I'm kind of glad where I get to live in the world of lead by example instead of tell people what to do. Because telling people what to do right now would be, well, telling people what to do, even on the best of conditions, is difficult. But in a world where, you cite someone, you can go on the internet and find like, oh, they're in the Epstein files. Well, so what's
Have a
your
look at
advice now?
have a
Right?
look at those Epstein files.
Yeah.
No, and have a look at oh, hey, why don't you come to Israel? If you need to use a false name, you can do that. We've got some nice kids here for you to hang
Mm.
out with. Stuff like that. I'm going to say that is at the very least problematic, but there is, that whole shiny facade, that
Yeah.
title, that spiritual guru title, it ain't shit.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And if somebody's offended by that or they're upset because they've been following that person, my suggestion to that individual is don't be mad at us for calling them
Yeah.
out. Be mad at them for what they did. Be mad at them for their deception of you and others
Mm.
and for what they did to children. That's what you need to be mad at, not for somebody
Right.
pointing it out to you. It's there. The knowledge is there. We're not saying anything that's freaking undercover and rocket science,
Right.
it's out there.
Yeah, we've actually been fairly lucky to be able to just use what exists in the world and share it and just offer a perspective.
I don't know if lucky is the word I choose, but we've certainly got a very prolific environment to
Right.
draw from, right? There's a lot of
Right.
examples out there. And yeah, you can not like it, but maybe look at it in a way that you can not like it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Which is not that now you have to change your mind. Because you know what? Here's the thing. Maybe you don't have to change your mind. It depends
Right.
on what of the teachings you took and
Well,
what you did
yes.
with them, right? So it's not
Yeah.
about that person anymore. It's about what you did once you heard that information. So are you, in fact, living a life that you're more proud of than you were before you heard their teachings? Are you doing something differently that's positive? And if that's true, well, great. You don't have to be mad about that. And you can still be really pissed at that person for their deception.
Right.
Both things are
Well,
true at the same time.
right. And what I was going to say was, I see this in entertainment all the time, and I see it with people, writers and stuff like that, who will joke about it and say, "Oh, well, we just stole this idea from, like, say, a comic book." And it was like, "Oh, it's so stupid." But it's like, no, that was really a fantastic idea. I know you were just actually, you know what? There is, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Made in Canada. It was on CBC, Rick
Yes.
Mercer.
Yeah. Many
There's an
moons ago.
episode where they write a book. I'm trying to remember the two names of the two characters there, Rick Mercer's character and then the blonde one, the blonde lady, because it's been so long since I've seen it. and they get drunk and they write the book. And they just take a bunch of cliches and quotes and stuff that they've heard, about how to be a warrior. And then the other guy takes the book and starts planning his life around it.
Okay.
And he goes and does a bunch of stuff and he was very confident and he ends up making more money and I don't know if he got a promotion or whatever, but like his life had improved significantly. But by the end of the episode, they're like, okay, listen, we were drunk when we wrote this book, and then it kind of deflated him. But it's like, but the advice he had taken was actually stuff that had helped him.
Yeah, and you see that deflating was
Yeah,
unnecessary because what he'd done with it was good. So it's not always the source even.
right.
It's what you do with that information.
Yes,
And it doesn't excuse the source. Right? Like, so you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you learn some cool stuff and it works for you and you feel good about that, don't throw that away. Nobody's
right,
asking you to. And even if they did, it's not their business to ask you to.
right,
So, if that works for you, do it. Yeah, of course. Why would you change that? And you don't have to continue to follow somebody and give them your hard-earned money
right,
um, once you discover what they are as a human being, which is pretty low on the score of evolution, honestly.
right.
And definitely vibrationally, not all that. So there's another thing where you talk about vibration and, oh, we've all got to be high vibration. I think we can now call into question what that means, right? Because let's stick with Deepak Chopra because I
Right.
am lastingly pissed at him. And and yeah, that's probably going to go for quite a while. But you know, oof, yes, that thread just kind of got all tangled up then.
Mm.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pick it up. That thread just kind of went into a knot.
So what I was getting was that shit, even I've got it now.
Oh.
All right, so it carried on from the idea of you can learn from someone even if, like we were saying,
Even if they're a douchebag.
right? Like because I had said, one of the advices I give is like just study people who are really shit. Like,
Vibration.
yes,
We were on vibration.
yeah.
That's where we went. Okay.
Oh, yes. So if you don't mind, so that's another one that falls under the category of it ain't shit. Try like telling you to be high vibration, low vibration, all that kind of stuff. That's just someone telling you how to be. You're still a human being. Like, and I think this is why star seeds were sitting in my mind. It's like, okay, you're an alien, you're now a human being. Well, guess what? You're a human being. Like, you are now incarnated as a human being. It doesn't matter if you come from Alpha Centauri, the Pleiades, or whatever other alien culture you're supposed to come from. You're here as a human being. You use the tools of a human being to do what you need to do. you know like you can take whatever is informed by this starseed nature of you, but you're a human being, and therefore high low vibration, those are all just different things of where you are at different periods. You can be low vibration this morning, be high vibration in the afternoon. There's no You have to be high vibration and constantly be there all the time and never waver from that particular frequency. Like, that's not a requirement.
Well,
You're living, you have an experience.
you can't not waver from that particular
Right,
frequency. It's like saying you're always happy. It's depending on how you use the topic of vibration,
right.
particularly, hey, we all have to be high vibration. Let's raise the vibration on the planet. Yes, and no and. So it's a little more complex and it depends on how it's being used. But when somebody tells you, oh, it's really important, you got to be high vibrational, they are talking through one of their lower orifices because
Right.
you can't do that. And what they're doing is telling you you're wrong, right?
Mm.
Like you're not doing life properly. And it's the spiritual version of toxic positivity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that's actually at least as harmful as somebody just being straight up miserable because now you're getting the impression that you are somehow wrong. My vibration isn't high enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I gotta meditate better.
Mm.
I gotta really try hard to meditate.
Mm.
Like no, none of those things. but it's the feeling that that kind of thing can impart, depending on who you're listening to. So if they do the whole, you know, you have to rate as soon as you hear you have to, right? That's a thing to
Right.
kind of put a question mark in front of. But you have to raise your vibration. You've got to be at this level or nothing good happens. Um, poof, way to put that person in a lower position than you, because obviously,
Yeah,
if
because
you're
you're so
talking
high in
that
your
way,
vibration. Yeah.
you must have it down, right?
Hmm.
And it's a falsehood, because that person will hide themselves away when they're having a bad day, because they're not going to let you see that they're having a
Yeah.
bad day.
Yeah. Because it amounts to telling someone, and this is for the women listening in the audience, it's like a guy coming up to you and going, smile.
Oh my God. Yeah.
There
Oh,
you go.
you'd be so pretty if you smiled.
Yes, that's the spiritual equivalent of
You'd
telling
look great
someone
with
to
a
smile.
pitchfork through your head. But uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah,
it's what it is. But and it equates to things like you can't walk, you always have to run. Okay, but there's times where I have to walk. Like I can't always be running. There's resources, I have limits, I have things I have to do. I have a corporal body that has. And it has mechanisms, certain features that we would call negative if we're doing the whole always saying you must be high vibration. Well, those things all have functions. They all have things to do. They all do things for our bodies. They all help us deal with situations. And sometimes you have to change your frequency.
well, here's the other thing. If a person is telling you you always have to be
Mm,
high vibration, then that tells you very clearly, I'm going to say, that they are not familiar with shadow work,
mm,
because you can't be in it when it comes to shadow work and be smiling all the way through. Because if
right,
you are, you're missing the freaking point. Like you're not getting the shadow work. There's stuff that comes up that you are not going to like. And you're going to have to work through it. That kind of is one of the definitions of shadow work. It's important and it's good because it gives you progress, but it doesn't in that moment feel
right.
very high vibrational, right? You are at a lower point right then,
Hmm.
and the ability to sit with that, to be in that, and to do
Right.
the work from that place, that's powerful. So, if somebody's giving you the toxic positivity nonsense of, well, you have to be up at this high level, um, that's it's great to reach for it, but to expect to stay there, no.
Right.
In human design, you have the solar plexus center, which is the emotional center. And you're aware of this, but the listener might not be,
Hmm.
that the emotional center has a wave, like the wave in the ocean. It is always moving. It doesn't stop. And when you're looking at something to make a decision and you're at the high point of that wave, you'll
Right.
see all the good points about that decision, that event, that job or whatever. And you'll see all the good aspects to it. It'll look great. And if you hang on a little bit, you'll go through that wave motion and
Right.
you'll go through the neutral very briefly, and then you go down into the, except this part of that job is crap and I really don't like this,
Right.
and you'll see all the negatives. The point is, when you've seen the high points and you've seen the low points, you now have a more rounded, balanced
Right.
view from which to make a decision. So if you're only in the high vibration and you're never in the low vibration, how do you even know what you're working with? You have to
Right.
have the full experience, day and night, light and dark,
Hmm.
et cetera, shadow work, doing
Yeah.
your work in the light. You can't have the one properly without the other. They have to, it's a duality. It has to be there. So to be
Right.
high vibrational all the time is to reach for the impossible. And I would even say the undesirable, because now you're out of touch with everything else. How can you be in a world on fire and be high vibrational all the time?
Right. Right. Because we're in a period of destruction.
Hell yeah. So
So
how
how
can
are
you
you
be
going to be high
high vibe?
vibrational and destructive, right?
You can aim for high vibe,
Yeah.
but you can't be in it the whole time. If you achieve it even once in a day or once in a week, you're doing well.
Right.
But to stay there all the time, You are dissociating if you're able to be happy all the time. You're missing the point and you're missing the wave,
Yeah.
right? Like you are not riding that wave. You're ignoring it completely.
Yeah.
And you can't, how are you going to do meaningful magic from a place where you're out of touch?
Hmm.
That's if you're going to try that, you might as well not be on the planet. Why did you even come here?
Right.
The whole point of being here is to be in touch, to have that concept that we're all connected, like it or not. And I'm not somebody who loves hanging out with people. So for me, a lot of the time, it's not, I don't love it, but here we are. And yes, you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. So this wording will probably come out as not the best wording in the world, but essentially, what you're getting this episode, and I've been getting for quite some time now, is that the spirit world is calling out the spiritual movement.
Mm, because it's just like another religion.
Well, and think about this, right? This is where I really started to notice it. So think back to the 1980s, right? You got Reaganomics and all that kind of thing, and money, money, money. Well, if you look at the spiritual movement at the time, the gurus were really starting to come out. Books were being written. Everyone had something. Now people have, their websites, their programs, their whatever. Like they monetized. And so they started just painting a prettier and prettier picture instead of saying, like, listen, man, spiritual work, it gets dirty sometimes. Like it gets dark. But no one really puts it plainly like that. They just kind of hide it and cushion it in, you know, the higher stuff. You'll attain Brahma, you'll, get to Nirvana or whatever, Nirvana. You'll be more enlightened. You'll like float along the ground. Flowers will bloom in
And,
your presence. And
and basically, what they're selling is you can dissociate from the grimy side of
right.
life anytime you want
Hmm.
by following this practice.
Yeah,
And if you believe these things, you will consider yourself as separate from the grimy side of life.
that's right.
And so they're basically selling dissociation, which is very clever of them. And, I didn't see it for the longest time, I gotta say. It was a shock to me to see the gurus
Mm.
crumbling as they have been. But once you see it, it's like, oh, it was there all the time,
Mm.
man. I just totally missed this. But that's the nature of illusion
Right.
shattering. That's the nature of the veil getting thinner and thinner, is you start to see stuff that has always been there,
Yeah.
but the illusion hid it from you.
Yeah.
And now you can see it. And so there's no point in being like offended by that. Just it's like be mad at the people for deceiving you, sure,
Right.
but
Don't
what
kill
are
the
you going to do
messenger.
from here? What's next?
Yeah. Because I'm sure you've learned a lot of stuff. That's the thing. You've learned a lot of
Right.
things, right? They may have been given to you under false pretenses or deceptive pretenses, but there were still a lot of lessons to learn and things you could internalize and make better.
Well,
Like,
it
think,
doesn't mean they didn't know some good stuff. It just
right?
means they didn't live by it.
Yeah. And that's the big difference. Like, even like, you can ask, like, Michaela says it a bunch of times in the podcast that, you know, of I'm not perfect. I need to know better. I can grow. I'm willing to grow from whatever. So we're all admitting that we're not there, wherever there is.
Well, you can't be there,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, because if you are, you're not on this planet. So, by definition, none of us are there.
Right.
Um, and honestly, you put yourself in a very difficult and vulnerable place if you can't accept that there's a lot you don't know. The
Yeah.
people who can't accept that stunt their own growth. How can you go and learn things? How can you go on journeys, for example, and I'm talking spiritual journeys,
Mm.
inward journeys. How can you do those if you think you know everything?
Right.
You can't. So it becomes a barrier. It's a massive block. How are you going to go and practice witchcraft if you know everything?
Right.
You can't because you don't know what the outcome is going to be exactly of what you're doing.
Right.
You can have an ish, you can have your intention in place so you know what you're hoping happens and you know what you're working on, but what it actually looks like sometimes if you say, I want clarity. Oh
Hmm.
man, do you remember when I stitched myself up with that this time last year? I want
Yeah.
clarity. And I
Yeah.
did a thing to get clarity, and god damn it, I got clarity. It slapped me upside the head that hard I was seeing stars, right? So I got what I asked for, but it didn't look how I was kind of thinking it might look, right?
Right.
It was a much more jarring and unpleasant experience, to say the very least, than I had thought was going to happen. Like, that wasn't my intention was clarity, and I got clarity. So, yes. Did I expect it to look and feel that way? No, I did not.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. Hmm. I was just trying to think what episode we were at this time last year. It got released. We were doing season three yet. We haven't jumped into the full on all the time. But this time last year, we had put out an episode about community. And before that, magical strategies, what to do with your magic. But
Well, I think it's
yeah.
maybe next month or the month after, a year ago,
Oh, well,
was
yeah,
when
yeah.
I
It
was,
wasn't to correct you. I was just trying to figure out where were we because sometimes I remember the episode, then I remember everything that went on
uh-huh.
around it. But
But it
no,
was
yeah,
it was
because you were
around,
starting to get after we did the big spell last, not the one that just passed, but last New Year's or on the
uh-huh.
6th, right?
Yeah,
You had fire and chaos, and I had wind and light.
yeah.
And then we both, oh my God, that was huge. That was huge because he was like, that's where I was like, okay, Kyle, I feel you. I'll stabilize some of it for you. Like
There was a lot.
it really solidified the connection of our magics working together because we were like
Yeah.
that state for probably close to, well, um, probably up until May, even, I think.
Easily, May.
Yeah. So from
Easily.
January to May,
Yeah.
the magics were connected because when Mikhaila would get flare ups of chaos, then on my side, I would be the neutralizer or at least the stabilizer of it as much as I could stabilize it.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot. But I mean, a lot of that chaos came forward because I asked for clarity.
Yeah.
And I was very definite about my yes, yes, I do want clarity. Yes, I do. I really, really do. Are
Yeah.
you sure? Uh-huh, I'm sure. Uh-huh. Well, don't get quite so cocky about what you're sure about.
Yeah.
Because man, when it hits you upside the head, it sure does.
Yeah.
That was a lot, and I'm still feeling the
Mhm.
reverberations at this point. Um, yeah, so when you're doing magic and you have an intention and you put a lot into it,
Mhm.
buckle up, Buttercup, because there's a bunch of stuff coming your way that you don't anticipate.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You can't anticipate it. If you could, you wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
So yeah, be prepared for the tidal wave. Like whatever rolls your way, it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It ain't
You know,
small. And if you can have somebody that can help balance a little, then do that. You don't have to do magic with a partner, but if you have somebody who's, shall we say, simpatico, that
mm,
really helps.
right.
That can be good.
Yeah. So something that's coming to my mind here that's sitting there on kind of a loop a bit is the don't let titles and the thoughts of other people rob you from this world. So this kind of going on with the people telling you to be in a high vibrational state. And it's like, okay, but that's really, like you said, disassociation, and you're not paying attention to the world. You're not
Right.
connecting. Like it's one thing not to pursue a title. Like, if you don't want to be, I don't know, head of a company, a CEO, a manager, district manager, or whatever other thing. Because I had a conversation earlier and someone was talking about when they were district manager, so it's kind of stuck. But anyway, but you shouldn't let that rob you of smelling a flower. You shouldn't let that rob you of enjoying, I don't know, hot, fresh out of the oven baked bread if that's the kind of thing you like. Like my grandfather used to bake bread because he was like a camp cook. So when he retired, he still made all that stuff and it smelled really good. But like, don't let don't let those things and those ideas being pushed by spiritual gurus rob you of actually living in this world.
Right? And I question how much of a guru they really are if they're pushing something that's so one-dimensional, right?
Right.
You got to be high vibrational all the time. Follow me and I'll get you there. Mm, that's, follow me and I'll make sure you're happy every single day.
Yeah.
I won't, but it's the same kind of thing, right? It's the same kind of nonsense.
Right. And then
So,
hitting you with, well, then you must not be meditating hard enough, or you must not believe enough, or you're not
right.
pure enough, or you're not, whatever
Or
criteria you
even
didn't meet because you're not in this blissful state.
or maybe they can even say things like, "Oh, you're so close. Just come
Yeah.
to one more of my events.
Right.
Just come to one more of my retreats. Just come to one more of my Oh, yeah, yeah, the next one. You'll be there
Mm.
at the next one and the next one." And thousands of dollars later, you discover that, well, you're not anywhere that you weren't before.
Right.
You're just a bit poorer now.
Yep. Yeah.
They're doing well flying on their personal jets.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't really want to go into a whole thing about mega churches, but wow. Yeah. If you want
Oh,
a
man.
blazing example,
Absolutely. Look at them. Yes, please, actually. Look at the mega churches. Those who don't have to pay taxes. Why are we still doing that? How is that a thing? Churches don't pay taxes. What a fascinating. The
mm,
idea being that they do good for people.
right.
But of course they don't. They do a lot of harm for people, particularly if you're,
Mm,
one of the groups that they don't like, trans
mm,
women, for
hmm.
example. Um, that was trans pause women,
Yeah.
right? Both groups. They're not doing good for anybody, so why are they still getting tax breaks?
Yep. Unless your money's
They,
going back into your community, that your flock, if you will.
which it isn't. It
Mm,
just goes into the church. And then you have these, Cirque du Soleil kind of
mm,
shows going on, and holy smokes. And when you've got somebody who speaks well,
mm.
they can be very persuasive. They
Yes.
can talk absolute garbage, but because they do it so well, you're wowed by them because of how they do it, the charisma, right? Charisma is everything when somebody's speaking, and the content of what they're telling you can be sketchy at best,
Mm,
but they'll get away with it because of how they're delivering it. Look at the mega churches. In fact, that's why the Democrat, I think he's a Democrat, James Tallarico, Texas.
oh yeah, yeah.
He's, uh-huh. He can talk the talk. He sounds
Mm,
like an evangelical preacher,
mm,
but what he's saying is not towing the party
mm.
line for the Republicans. He's towing the party
Right.
line for the Democrats. He's
Right.
confusing the hell out of people.
Yes.
They're so confused because he's got the cadence, he's got the
Mm,
scripture, he's got
mm.
the, passion, and whoa, he can really put it out there. But it's not the thing they're expecting to hear. Dissonance,
Yeah.
dissonance,
Yep.
what do we do with this? It's kind of amusing to watch, honestly. People are so freaking confused by him. And that shows you the
Mm,
power of being able to speak in that way.
yeah. Yeah. I've been noticing it because this is a thing I have because, like, especially when you have a younger generation coming up and they're asking you questions about it. Oh my God, did you hear that person talk? And I'm like, yeah, I heard them, and they're idiots. Ah, okay, I'm gonna throw this one out there. We are like naming names today. Anyways, my big one, Bono from U2.
Okay.
I
He's,
have never
he's
seen a more eloquent person talk bullshit about nothing than this guy. I've seen him at political things, at giving his speeches, fundraisers, and it's all like that was amazingly said. And if I was a complete moron, I'd have believed you. But I'm not a complete moron. So what the hell are you talking about?
Go back to the 80s and
Yeah.
look, I think it was 86, was it? The Feed the World thing.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Ah,
Whoa. That whole. Oh yeah. That whole thing. Won't even get me
that whole
started.
thing. that whole thing. Now, Bob Geldof, I am old enough to have seen
Mm.
Bob Geldof in concert with the Boomtown Rats,
Okay.
which was the punk band
Right.
that he was lead singer of. And in this one particular concert, we very nearly broke the concert hall
Hmm.
because people up in the upper level were leaping up and down as
Right.
punks do,
Yes.
and the whole floor was moving, like
Got the vibration
significantly,
going, and then it, yeah.
not just a little bit, it was moving a
Hmm.
lot. So much so that the concert people put the lights up and cut the electricity to the
Hmm.
music and, to the instruments and announced, you have to stop doing this.
Mm.
We're going to have a catastrophe.
Right.
And he came over the top. I remember this so vividly. He came over the top and as loudly as he could, he said, I don't give a fuck what they say. Bounce
Mhm.
as high as you can. And
Right.
of course, being, good punks, everybody
Yeah.
did.
Right.
And we didn't break the place, but I bet we did some structural damage,
Yeah.
right? This
Well, that's how big
same
this collapsed.
guy, this it didn't collapse that
Yeah.
day, but
Yeah.
but this same guy is then, holier than thou,
Mm.
just a short while later
Mm.
all about, feeding the starving kids in
Mm.
Africa. He had no idea what he was talking about or how it was going to work or who
Right.
exactly he was feeding or anything.
Yeah.
None of them did, but it saved a few careers.
Hmm.
It boosted some ratings. That's what that did. So, that was another one of those perfect
Mm.
examples of this is not what it seems. This is not what they're
Right.
saying. And the people in this, are they all as shiny as they look?
No. That's the thing, right? So it's the vainglory. I'm going to
Oh,
take
yeah.
my name and I'm going to make myself look even better than I was, even though the work I'm doing will go to the government who will never dispense it with amongst their citizenship because that's why they were starving in the first place,
Uh-huh.
or the rebel group trying to take over just takes the food.
Yeah. It didn't
And
go
I
where
say
it was
that,
going.
right, because I'm trying to think if it's the lead singer of Iron Maiden. He would fly supplies in and he would go and if someone was in a, when there were, he would fly people out basically when there were humanitarian crises and stuff like that. He would go directly and do stuff. But
Uh-huh.
he was a pilot, so he could fly in and he can bring supplies and stuff like that. But yet it was Iron Maiden, so people down talking. It's like, okay, well, he's doing way better than the rest of these guys doing these, all these shows and stuff to raise money because he's actually bringing the stuff to the people.
He's just doing the thing. And
Yeah,
that's a great example of, are you doing the public show or are you doing
right.
the thing? Are
Yeah.
you doing the work? And, back in the day, centuries ago, when I lived in Bangladesh,
Mhm.
we had a massive flood. Like when I say massive, I mean even the capital city, Dhaka, which is the highest ground
Right.
they have. It's not very high. We're still not talking very high, but it's the
Right.
highest ground they have. That was under at least 10 feet of water at the highest point. So everything was underwater, right?
Right.
And I was there for that wonderful experience. And as the floodwaters started to recede, things really got bad. Then we had a cholera epidemic, and
Mm.
the TB was spreading like wildfire. I mean, it was already there in the street people, but it was spreading like there was a lot going on. And aid started to pour in from different countries.
Right.
What a fascinating experience that was. So all the countries who pride themselves, that vainglory, pride themselves on, look at how amazing we are. We sent
Right.
food to the poor, starving Bangladeshis.
Mm.
It was actually funny despite the situation because, for example, from Italy,
Hmm.
there were I saw them, giant cans of tomato sauce, not ketchup, but like
Right.
mashed up tomatoes.
Yeah.
Bangladeshis don't typically eat tomatoes because they don't grow there. Like it's
Mm.
it's not a food they eat. So, and can openers, who has one of those?
Right.
People didn't have can openers. So these giant cans were being sold to the more wealthy people who probably didn't come from there, who did have can openers and did know what to do with them. And
Mm.
then you had like big things of powdered milk from gift from
Ooh,
the people
yeah.
of Australia. And then there was tons of butter. Like, what do you do with butter? And where are we going to store that anyway? There's no
Mm.
place to store it. It's a freaking flood. and there's not much place anyway. But all the countries, what they did was they sent their surplus. They
Mm,
did not send what the Bangladeshi people needed. They sent what they didn't need, what
right,
the country themselves didn't need. That is the difference between performative charity
yeah,
and actually doing something meaningful. And I'm so happy this thought came up because
yeah,
it's a good example. It's a clear example of, countries ticking the box and saying, here we are, we're sending tons and tons of food aid. Look at us, we're so good, we're
yeah,
ticking the boxes. But you're sending the stuff that you don't care about. You're
right,
sending the stuff you don't want. The recipients aren't receiving anything that they can actually use if
right.
it got to them, which it frequently didn't. Because in that
Well, that,
country, you have to pay bribes to get stuff in,
mhm,
and then you pay bribes to get it distributed, and more bribes because that's how things operate there. And like people weren't getting what they needed, basically, at all. Partly because
yeah,
surplus that people didn't want was what was coming in instead of useful things. Nobody said, what do you guys need?
yeah,
None of the countries, to the best of my knowledge, checked in with how can we get this to the people who need it? Not
yeah,
one. Not one. I saw so many charities working in that country during my 3 years there,
mm,
and they all had agendas that
right,
had nothing to do with the people they were serving, everything to do with the people who were paying them.
right.
And
Yeah,
so I do not give to charities, certainly not international charities at all, because I know how they work. I've seen them.
yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, that would be a whole other episode. Like that we
Oh,
can
yeah.
go on, just all the stuff associated with it. Like we even mentioned on the podcast, right? Like that, I think it was the Red Cross when they were trying to get into Lebanon and the Lebanese army had stopped them. I think it was Lebanon. Yeah, it was Lebanon, pretty sure. And the Lebanese are being accused of like making stuff up, like oh there were spies on the boat. Listen, it's the Red Cross, as if there's spies on the boat. Wow, what do you find out 2 years later? Yeah, they were all spies on the boat. They just happened to be embedded with the Red Cross. Like it was,
Look at Gaza and the Red
yeah,
Cross there. They
right.
were taking part in a lot of the atrocities of October 7. And they've been, UNRWA who did the schools. They're responsible for the schools that taught Palestinian children to hate. So these are United Nations organizations. And frankly, while we're on the subject of
Mm,
UN organizations, I saw them in action in Bangladesh too. And I have to say, the people who came out
mm,
best from their dealings were the people who worked for the UN.
mm.
They lived quite a nice lifestyle, thank you. What did they do that was useful? If I think of something, I'll let you know. But I
That's
saw
yeah.
I saw a lot of that. Now, there are a few good
Mm,
people working for these
mm,
organizations, don't get me wrong. And I think it's quite a rude shock to them when
mm,
they discover that what they thought they were there to do
mm.
isn't what they're there to do.
Right.
Right? That does happen. And not everybody is going in for the wrong reasons. But they discover that the machine is bigger than they are. And with all the best will and wishes in the
Right.
world, what they can do is minimal because it's all about
Yeah.
the money and the optics. It's the vainglory.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? The people who go in there with the best intentions are usually the shields for, because, like I'll say, right, like that boat that went into Lebanon, there are probably like one or two people who weren't spies, so they were in a hell of a ride, and then the other ones are
Right?
like spies, and they're like, yeah, okay, this is expected. But that's the thing, right? Like you let the people in with good intentions, so that because they provide cover.
Uh-huh.
Like that's pretty much the best like way I can look at it is that always be wary of the organizations you join because if you're not in the governing group, odds are you're a shield for that group.
And what you think you're doing,
Yeah.
what you think you're there to do, probably, you go in with shiny eyes and bright optimism, and they will systematically bash you about the
Mm,
head until you give it up, you know?
right.
That's what I've seen. I mean, when I first went to Bangladesh, it was to be in an orphanage as a volunteer. Oh man, did I learn some stuff about that. And let me just say that also did not come out well.
Mm,
It really, really didn't come out well because so many of these places, They show you a good line, they tell you a good story, and it ain't what it seems at all. That's again my experience. I spent 3 years learning an awful lot about what wasn't true.
Yeah,
I really, really did. It was eye-opening to a staggering degree. And, we're just getting more of that on a global scale now. And I
yeah,
still have the capacity to be surprised by it, which is fundamentally human, right?
yeah.
When you can still be surprised by things and you've been like,
Mm,
yeah, but didn't you get something like that revealed to you X number of years ago?
mm.
Yeah, but that was there and this is here. And you still, you have that human optimism that when people tell you something, they show you something that it's true, but
mm.
it probably isn't. That's what I'm discovering.
Yeah, it's funny to I'm pretty sure you had mentioned something like this on the podcast before, but you look at the world through your own lens and you assume and you put that lens on a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. You
And
think
then
everybody else sees it the same way.
right. And then so that's part of where you get surprised from. Like me, one of the things I always found surprising was like listening to interviews with actors, especially actors who have done like these roles that are like super deep, right? And they teach all these fantastic lessons, and you think, my God, these actors must be like learning all these wonderful things, and they must be like leading really enlightened lives. Look at the roles they're doing, and then you see the interview with them, and it's like you learned nothing, like absolutely nothing. In fact, why are you strung out right now on cocaine while doing this interview? Like, what's going on with you?
It is interesting to see the
Yeah,
difference between the presentation and the
yeah.
reality.
So when we think, right, like, so we're sitting here like talking about these gurus, and we're like still with the surprise and still with the, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it's like, because that's how we do it. We figure if you do the spiritual stuff, you're going to have a certain degree of growth and it's going to change your perspective and you're going to be a lot more, caring towards other people because now you see what people, you see people as imperfect and you want to help. But then you realize, oh, but these people are all just either grifting or not everybody, like, but enough. Like the big names you always got to watch, right? Because how did you get popular? Who
Well,
back? Because, and that's where it goes back actually back to Epstein. Epstein connected people. That was one of the things of, you know, oh, I got dirt on you. So if you do this for this person, that
mhm.
kind of thing. And so some people got really popular because that those transactions going on. And so you
Yeah.
always got to kind of be wary of, and I hate to say it that way, but you always got to be wary of people who become worldly famous. All right. That unusually long pause was brought to you by the new interface for Zoom. So I had no idea where the friggin' pause button was for recording.
And I had puppies and cats doing things,
Mm,
as often happens on these episodes.
yeah.
They have patience for a while. But one of the things that I did not lose my thread. One of the things that I find ponderation worthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like think about it and just try and visualize. How does somebody like Deepak
Mm-hmm.
Chopra talk about the things they talk about to a massive audience of people, giving like heart and soul into it, right? How can they hold that and do the things that they did to children? Like, how can you do both of, where do you reconcile that? Like, how does he hold both of those things as being equal or acceptable at the very
Right.
least? Right? That's something that I find I don't have an answer for that, but I sure as hell have a big question about it because that to me is fascinating. Like, which was there a lie in there? In that you're telling all these people these spiritual truths and these paths and yada yada. Was he being cynical? Like, was he just throwing stuff out there that he didn't really believe, but he recognized that people like to hear it?
Mm,
In other words, was it all bullshit? It just fortuitous bullshit?
yeah.
Because I'm not saying that what he said was inaccurate. What I'm saying is he might not have believed it in order to be able to view children as others, children
Yeah.
as humans that didn't matter, that he could do what he wanted with them. Like, how do you do those two things in the same human body?
Well, remember we had said before, or I had said before on the podcast, when someone gives you an origin story, of how human beings are made, that counts for their people. And then kind of the idea of, well, you didn't come like we showed up in the world, so you don't count as people idea.
Uh-huh.
There's the idea of like, or we had said it about the Constitution of the United States, right? We the people. Who the hell are the people? Well, it's not
Well, they
A,
weren't
B,
the
C,
black
or D,
people.
right?
They weren't the black people,
Right.
apparently.
So you
They weren't
could,
considered people.
right. So you could give this enlightened speech about this is for people and still not consider certain people people.
I guess. I just, in my naivety,
Yeah.
I would just think that he would have a better grasp on what it is to be a person.
Yeah, I would
And
think so too.
I'm still I'm like lastingly stuck in the place of how do you do that? Like how do you hold both of those things to be okay? How are you good with that? How is he still good with that? Because the guy hasn't said anything like, "Oh wow, I made a mistake for all those years,"
Mm,
right? Which is what some of them will throw at you. No, no, no. He's doing the whole let's all hold hands and get through
mm,
this together.
yeah.
Oh, sure. I'd like to hold his throat. I don't know about his hands. That's I have a very different view of what
Mm.
he requires.
And
Um
that's one of those things too, and this does not absolve him or any bit in any way. You have to imagine someone like that puts a lot of money in a lot of pockets.
oh yeah.
And so even let's say he wanted to come clean. There is probably a whole shitload of people going, you're not coming clean. This money is still going. We still got this money train going. People are still paying for your stuff. So you're not coming out and admitting anything. You're not admitting shit. You're
I don't feel
yeah,
that I don't get the impression that he
yeah,
has any desire to admit
yeah,
anything, but I agree that
mm,
there's a lot of money train stuff happening. Absolutely. And again, it's like, wow, we the people, if you will,
mhm,
have been taken for absolute fools, and you can be mad about that. And he still may have said some good things that you
yeah,
want to continue to use in your life. All of those
yeah,
things can be true, but boy, we are asked to hold an awful lot right now on this planet.
yeah,
We're asked to deal with a lot of things that, they're difficult, they're uncomfortable.
yeah. So that's
And
why.
so, how are you going to do that?
Mm,
Where is your strength? Where is your foundation in who you are to be strong enough to deal with all of the incongruencies that we are
yeah.
surrounded by?
Hmm. So that's why you ain't shit for your title, and you have to go in on yourself and understand yourself. That's where your power comes from. It's always been you. Hasn't been someone else giving it to you. It's always been you.
And I love that. It has
Even
always
if
been
you
you,
think it's someone else, I'll explain.
especially
Like,
then.
but even if you think like, oh, I don't know, I was in love with this person and I could move mountains with them around. Okay, then they do something shitty to you, and now they're not that source of your power. So obviously they weren't the source of your power to begin with. It was your reaction to them that was the source of the power. Therefore, you were the source of your power,
Right.
and it was how
They
you chose to
just
bring it out
they
in
just
what
said something
circumstance.
that allowed you to believe that you could do it.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's I mean we've gone far and wide as we usually do on these
yeah,
podcasts, so that's nothing unusual. But I think there's something in there to consider for anybody that's
yeah,
still listening to us at this point.
yeah.
Um, where are you following? Where do you want to lead?
Hmm.
Do you just want to do your own thing? But where you're following, I would question that really closely. Like really, really closely on that one. And again, maybe you can get some good stuff from that. It's not
Yeah.
all just because somebody's a complete douchebag
Mm,
doesn't mean everything they've ever said was bad,
right.
you know? But it does certainly make the pill harder to swallow.
Yes.
So now
Absolutely.
you're your own source.
Hmm. That's
That's
right.
what I got for today. Blech. That's what I have for today.
Yeah. No, that's where it is. All of this to say, you are your own source. Work from within and bring it out. You can grab advice from here and you can grab advice from there, but if it doesn't pass the check for you, if it does not do what you need, don't worry about it. Don't worry about who said it. Don't worry about all that kind of stuff. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And don't worry about it. You don't have to put anyone else down for believing those things. You don't have to put anyone, don't even worry about what other people are doing. Unless they're coming up
Mhm.
on you, don't worry about them. Let them do their thing. You do your thing. And then this episode will go from you ain't shit to you are fucking amazing.
There you go.
So there you go. It ends on you're fucking amazing. You went from you
And
ain't
both
shit.
things can be true.
Yep.
Both things can be true depending
Yes.
on how you're looking at it.
Yep. And we're going to end on that one.
So
So
he's Danielle Dubois.
that's right. She's Michaela Gaffinstone. And until
Until
next
next
time.
time.
À la prochaine.
Bye.